Thanks for joining us for the If I Had More Time podcast. I'm so glad that you joined us today. My name is Liz Garcia. I'm your host. I'm here with two amazing pastors in our church. Our pastor emeritus, Kenton Beshore. We know him. We love him. For those of you that do know him, we love him. And we have Jared Kirkwood here. He is our executive pastor of ministries as well as our lead pastor of our Irvine congregation. Jared, thanks for being here.
Hey, happy to be here. Anytime I can hang out with Kenton, I'm pretty excited.
I know,
So
right?
kind.
You never know where it's going to go.
Exactly. This weekend, I'm excited. We're in week 3 of our series going through the book of Ecclesiastes, all on this search for meaning. And I love how our senior pastor laid out this series. I love the emphasis on meaning as we're going through this book. And this weekend is no exception, this idea of work and rest. And we were just chatting before we got rolling about how this topic is just, we've got that down in Southern California, work and rest, right? It's no problem for any of us.
The first
here.
part.
Yeah. We're good at the work part. Yeah. It is. It's for where we are in our current context and this time in history, Southern California is really great at work. We're an ambitious.
Well, not just at we're great at it in all the bad ways.
Yeah.
So we're great at it in that we let work define us. So it makes us who we are, and we let the income that we have define us, the status that we have, the achievement. It plays into everything that's in Southern California. And Southern California's kind of got the mindset of, you can't cut it, go to Wisconsin. And part of that is really the pride and the arrogance that goes with, we're fast. And so you look at the Silicon Valley, Northern California. I mean, you got to be big, you got to be fast, and you're defined by your job right away. It's, what do you do? But then when you're defined by what you do, it's crushing. It absolutely destroys us.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there something for us when we're talking about the importance of rest as a follower of Jesus? Kenton touched on this in his message, where we show something to the world when we are good at rest, right? And I think that what you're talking about is a great example of this is kind of how you are countercultural in our context, is to actually know how to do this.
If you do. But I think that we deceive ourselves, because most of my friends, when I look at them, what they call rest is just working at something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have what they do for work when they think about this is work, but then they have another category of, well, then I have to do this, which is I'm planning vacations or travel, and there can be some kind of joy in that. But, there's a whole work component to that.
Yeah.
Or they get driven by, they've got to do all these other things. But it's mostly that it's just on, you're turned on, and you're driven, and it's about accomplishment. And at the end of it, you don't say what God said in Genesis, oh, that was good. It's like, that was good. And then when they say that was good, they give you, and they list all the accomplishments and what they ticked off. And so work has got a part of, I want to accomplish things, but when it defines us, when it drives us, it destroys us. And so that book that I mentioned is when work becomes, or achievement becomes this toxic culture. It's unbelievable, the statistics that she quotes, where it's just crushing to kids because it doesn't matter what they do, it's never enough. And so parents keep driving it, and it crushes them. And even in her book, she says the only way you can resolve it is if you help your kids with meaning, not achievement. So what Ecclesiastes says, what the Bible says is, and research says, is you've got to find meaning, or you're just going to be spinning. So we spin. So Southern California rewards it. Everybody around us affirms it. We are workaholics. We celebrate it. You say somebody, how you doing? Everybody, I'm busy, because that's
Which is
the
a badge
best
of
way
honor,
to say it. Yeah, it is. And so that's what we do. But the idea of rest is such a different thought, because then it's literally shutting it off. It's turning it off. And I love the idea, it's real easy to understand in the Old Testament that you go, okay, 6 days and a seventh day. I mean, they just had to shut it off, and they had all these laws and they went crazy with it. But the idea that Jesus being our Sabbath rest, I read that book by Brother Lawrence, Practicing the Presence of God. That book changed my life in college, and it is one of the defining concepts in my life. And I don't know that I do it as good as what it's supposed to, but just that idea of being mindful is the only way that I can find rest, where I am mindful that God is with me. I'm mindful that he loves me. I'm mindful that he forgives me. And even in the most broken moments of my life where, I act out, I do something stupid, I am mindful, you are with me in this moment, and you love me, and you're not pulling away from me. It really does capture, I think, the idea of rest, Jesus being our Sabbath rest. So in the Old Testament, you had to knock it off, and, people could see it, and it was measurable, like a lot of what's in the Old Testament. New Testament's way harder, because how do they know you're knocking it off and not doing it?
Yeah.
So, what is that work that you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's not just work, because you were talking about, so we have the job that we do, and then, so work is a career, you kind of a deal. But then we ask people to be involved in the church and to serve in your ministry you're talking about. So what's that? So we'll call that a calling. So for pastors, it's kind of easy, because my job, my career, and my calling line up. So I get the win, so I work at church, and I'm doing my calling, which, I'm serving Jesus, but then I'm also doing work. So people go to work and they do that. So there's your career, and they get to partner with God, and it's a divine calling. But at the same time, they have a sense of, but I want to serve, and I want to serve in, in different ways in the church, and I'm gifted. So giftedness, it's the only way the church moves forward, is that God gives gifts. And so that's how we minister, this way we grow each other up. So now you go, now I got a career, and I got to work, and I got a calling, and I got to do that. So it's really balancing it is way harder. So we in the church have it the easiest.
For the person that does have the data entry job, like you kind of joked about in the beginning, the one who's looking at their work going, I don't see the connection between what I'm doing here and the kingdom of God that is around me at all times. Is that part of the answer? Is helping them change their heart towards I'm doing what I can because I'm providing for my family, and then I'm going to find other ways that I can contribute and serve so that I can be a part of the kingdom of God?
Yeah, I like the way you said. I think the first one is, there's an old story that has always stuck with me, and you've probably heard it. Two people laying bricks, and the guy comes up and says, what are you doing? And one person says, I'm laying bricks. And the other person goes, I'm building a magnificent cathedral where people will come, and families and people will meet Jesus forever. So they're doing the same job, but one person's able to connect with it and connect the meaning behind it.
Right.
And so whatever job that you're doing, if you can't connect the meaning to it in this way, this is a gift from God. And in it, even if it seems, crazy, if I'm picking up trash, if I'm, cooking, flipping burgers, whatever you're doing, I'm still a part of what God values in providing for people and serving people. And if I lose sight of work is always providing and serving, then it doesn't matter what you do. You can be making huge amounts of money and killing it, and what seems really important, or you can be doing data entry but it will become meaningless in time, because the money, the status, research says it, the money, the status, none of that ultimately is what brings meaning. Meaning really has to be a journey of faith, where you're saying, by faith, I'm believing that God is partnering with me in what I'm doing here as a mom, as a school teacher, as a custodian, whatever it is, that God is partnering with me. And as I do this, I am doing God's work in the world. If I lose that, you're just punching a time clock and you're losing it. And then if you don't have it and you run to ministry and go, well, I hate my job, but I'm going to go serve, there's always going to be a loss there. So the first thing you have to do is, there has to be a sense of, I've got to receive the gift of meaning from God in the work that I do.
Yeah.
And if I don't do that, and I have to accept it by faith. And so I imagine there's, people get, and that's why those verses are so hard where, you talk about a bad boss, slaves, and still you work as you're working to the Lord and your job. So it doesn't matter. You don't get an out where it's like, well, if you got a really, really bad boss or a really tedious job, you don't get out. There is that sense of, it doesn't matter what you do, you're a part of what God's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's your career. But then we do have callings, ministries. The Bible talks about we got gifts, and those gifts we're called then to serve, and then people grow as a result of it. And so you got to serve with your gifts or people don't grow. Somebody's, paying a terrible price if you're not serving somewhere.
Wow.
So you can't just go, wow, I got a great job, or I don't have a job. I've got to, in addition to that, do it. And so I think one of the things for us in ministry, as I said, is our career and calling match. Those are two ingredients for people, and both are very important, and they have to be a part of their life.
Yeah. I'm so thankful for how these texts do show that God does give us so much meaning in our work.
Right.
You said it. It's what we spend most of our life doing.
Right.
A lot of us, I work with my spouse, so this doesn't count. But most people spend more time with the people that they work with than their own families.
Yeah. And more time at work than any other single thing they do.
Yeah. And not only that, also the time you spend thinking about work and preparing for work. I mean, it is so pervasive for so much of our life. So that God would give us meaning in that is so kind of him.
It is.
And it's got to be a part of his design. I love how you showed that he's the example actually of a worker. That was really special to see.
Yeah.
I'd love for us to talk about how maybe some of the signs that we see in ourselves. What are some signals when we're going from we've crossed over from work has meaning and I have a lot of purpose in what I do to overworking? What are some signs that we see in ourselves, feelings or maybe habits?
Feelings are the best way to identify. So feelings are the great barometers that you go, one of the reasons why God gives us feelings is they identify for us places where we've misplaced trust, we've misplaced faith, we've got our priorities wrong. And so we tighten up, and it's like, well, why do you feel that way? Why?
Yeah.
And so when you just ask yourself, why am I so anxious about that? And so, there's nothing wrong with loving what we do in our work and accomplishing. But then when someone gets in our way and we can't get through our list and our emotions, it's natural to be frustrated. So you go, I can be frustrated. But when I'm not just frustrated, but now you become my enemy and I start to go, I've got to destroy you and I'm going to kill you. It's like that. And, and you wake up in a day going, who's going to get in my way today? And you literally are just going to plow through people. That's a good emotion,
Wow.
Those emotions are a good barometer to say, I think that work has become a little too important to me in that way. So yeah, just a little too much in that. Or, if a possession, there's nothing wrong with people having things, but then when that possession becomes really important, or it gets threatened, or it gets taken, or it gets dinged, or whatever it happens to it. And it isn't just, I'm sad because I really love that thing, or I enjoyed that thing. But now it's like it ruins your day and your emotions, and you talk to anybody and you go, I'm so mad, I'm so angry. And so the anger and the mad, you just go, it's just a signal that thing is way out of line and I have too much invested in it. When I think in our area especially, people's reputation is very important to them.
Right.
And so they try to manage it and they try to work it. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be seen as a loving person or successful or whatever it is. But again, then when you get bumped or somebody says something about you that you think is unfair or is untrue and you want to destroy them, it's like you go, there's another indication that you go, you probably have gone off the edge and now, that thing has become way too important to you. So, we would say that's a way of identifying a false God, is that it just now is, that's what I'm trusting in, that's what I'm believing in, that's what I'm relying on. And so I have these trips that just do it. But emotions is the best way to find it. So when you're walking through and you're angry, and you're not just, but you're more than frustrated. I mean, and you're starting to have contempt, or you see people as obstacles, and you go, there's something wrong inside you that you've ordered it wrong. You have it wrong.
That's good.
One of the things I see around here, people I talk to on the patio, just they're trying to figure out how to keep up in life. What I've noticed is some people have their job, then they build their life that's contingent on how much money they make, and then their schooling and their cars and their house. And then they get to the point where they can't keep up any further, or it's just exhausting, right? That's where I think like work loses its meaning, because now I'm just trying to work hard enough to keep up this life that I've built for myself. Right at the beginning of your message, you talked about the difference between needing to find meaning. We either create it or we receive it.
Right.
What would you say to those people who have built a life dependent on the compensation because of their job, and now they're exhausted?
I love that question.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, because the first part is, what gives me meaning? And then the lie is my possessions, or the house, or these things which you chase. Because everybody dreams, you start off in an apartment, and then you go, but then you have kids, and it's like, we can't fit. And so you look at them, and then they're dreaming. And again, there's nothing wrong with looking at it. But when it becomes something I must have, and then you're stretching. But then when you get it, you see yourself differently. You define yourself by that. When those things define us, then they drive us. And when we're driven by something that's not enough, it will destroy us. And so, people have just tons of possessions, and they can't manage it. And so they don't give it away. They just stick it in a storage unit. And so then they got storage units, and then they go, what do you do? And then that just becomes, literally, there are people who they're being crushed by the weight of all of their possessions, and going, what's wrong? And you go, well, it's all of these things that you trusted in, believed in, that would make you happy, bring you meaning, bring joy, but they don't. They don't. And that's actually the best part of what is Ecclesiastes, because all he does is he just keeps making these lists of, I went after this. Where you go, why don't people read this? Because it's like, I went after this, I thought, and he goes full in and does it all. And it goes, wow, this does not do it.
Right.
So
he did. He tried it all, and he
exhausted himself doing it. Yeah. He does. And that's the great part of the.
And yet most people would still say, it's like the lottery.
I'm going to try.
It's like the lottery. People win the lottery, and then they're like, the rate of how many people go bankrupt within 5 years of winning the lottery. You're like, but I would be different.
Yeah.
Like so many people, they still live that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's true in this place too. Right. They look at Solomon and they go, yeah, but we're not the same.
Yeah.
They do. But the houses, the cars, the possessions, people, the shiny, it's the same thing in social media. What do they see? They see a choreographed person that they're projecting as an image, and that's all we see as we walk around. But that's not what their experience is. But then when I believe it, then I start to pursue it and think, no, but that'll give me what I want.
Right.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Nobody's happy that way.
Yeah.
Can we get to rest? I got to really figure out how to get some rest.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, what is a rest?
Well, I just think, is rest just not working? I mean, you described earlier this picture of some people just transfer busyness into their spare time, managing their wealth or portfolios or their side hustles or whatever the things are.
Home projects.
Yeah. I mean, I had this last Friday, we had projects to do around the house, and it was like one thing led to the next thing and to the next thing. And that's my one day off. And so it just kept going and going. And then the sun was setting, and I'm like, I'm still pressure washing this house.
Geez.
I mean, it was an endless thing. Yeah. Part of it felt really good. I finished the day and I did some things that needed to get done, but then I also had that parallel feeling of I didn't get the rest that I needed in order to prepare myself for what comes tomorrow.
I think you described perfectly what, you didn't work at your job, but you worked at home. That's just work and work. So the best way, I think, here's all the thoughts I have on rest. The first and most important one is the first thing God calls holy is rest. So when he gives the fourth command, he says, Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. So that's separate, distinct, different. And the Old Testament, we don't want to become legalistic, but we can learn a lot by looking at the Old Testament. And so you say, what did it mean for God's people to rest? It meant that they had to not do much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so they took it to a crazy amount.
Sure. Yeah.
But you look at what they did. They basically said, well, we're not going to cook meals, and so we're going to prepare all meals the day before. We're not going to travel a certain distance, because traveling a certain distance would be physically, tiring. We're not going to cook meals because they got super legalistic. But what was the heart of it? The heart of it was there should be, first of all, there would be a people that would be looked at by outsiders and say, wow, they look different. Well, what made them different? They would accomplish everything that they needed to do. That's work at your job and work around your house in 6 days. And on the seventh day, they'd knock it off, meaning there's just nothing. You'd see them and they'd live in such a way that they're not doing household chores. They defined what work was, and they got real legalistic about it. But the idea behind it was there really is a day where you rest. And then what do? Well, you remember the Lord. And so it is really a day dedicated to the Lord. So when I grew up in church as a kid, do you know what Sundays were called? The Lord's Day. That's right. Nobody says that anymore. You have to be an old church person to do that. Well, where'd that come from? That comes out of the Old Testament, and the idea of there was a day that was dedicated to the Lord. And when I was a kid, man, those church people were tough. We would go Sunday morning, and then we'd go home. Then you go back Sunday night, because you're supposed to spend a whole day. And most people in the church went home and took naps, because it was like you were doing, literally, they didn't work. I mean, there's an expression in that comes out of that Old Testament of you're knocking it off. You're not doing anything. So anything that represents, power washing, doing anything, I can do that on a Saturday if you take Sunday as a day off, which you don't get that day off because I
take naps on Sunday too.
Right. But the idea would be, in the legalistic, the Old Testament, there would be, the people of God would be seen as trusting God as the one who would provide, who would protect, who would do the crops. And the seventh day was a day dedicated to the Lord. Lori's grandfather was a rancher, farmer, and we're driving one time and we're going to church, and there's a guy out there grinding his field, and he says, that guy's an idiot. And I said, why? He goes, that guy stays up late just to watch hay grow, and then he takes the credit. And I'm thinking, and he goes, because you know what? There's got to be a day that's the Lord's day. And so this guy is a rancher, and, you can always do something. So he's driving his tractor and tilling a field. But, there's kind of this wisdom of an old rancher that's saying, you know what? When you take a day off, you're acknowledging that it is God who grows the hay.
Right.
It is God who gives the sunshine.
Wow.
It's God who gives. I'm emotional, and I don't know why, but God is the one who gives me life. God's the one who does it. And God's saying, I've designed you in such a way that you're actually created to live that way.
Wow.
So that, you're designed, and here's what it's saying, you're designed to live in a cycle of 7. So it's 1 day in 7. It's not 2 days in 14, and it's not 3 days in 21. It's 1 day in 7. So there should be some expression. So I'm all for grace and saying, and I don't want to go to the legalistic thing, and I don't want to do that. But I think if there isn't some expression in your life where you say, I limit the days I work, I limit the hours I work, and when I shut off, whenever that place is that shut off, I'm going to have a lifestyle that is resting in God. And that's the idea of what practicing the presence of God. It is really coming into his presence so that at the end of it, you go, I think God really likes me. I think he really wants to be with me. I'm living in a world, in a mindset that he wants to be with me.
Yeah.
So it's super counter to Orange County, because nobody's like knocking off a day and going, yeah, it's the Lord's day. And that's what, the idea. You go to church on the Lord's day, and then You go to lunch on the Lord's Day, and and you really are resting in the Lord would be the idea. There's a lot to that. Those people had a lot. They had a lot going on for that. We've just lost it.
That's beautiful. I'd love for you to recap a little bit more of what you shared for the remind me of the name of the book, the Practicing the Presence of God.
Yeah.
This importance of acknowledging where our mind does go when we rest, because everybody who's listening wants to give this a shot. Everybody who's
it's
listening
not where your mind goes when you rest. It's where your mind just goes.
Yeah.
So you go out into the world, and our minds are a wonderful example of our brokenness. So we go out into the world, we get bumped, we get angry, we see things we want, and so we're covet, we're jealous, we want those things. We get resentful. Our mind wanders. We want things. There's things that we shouldn't do, and we go, "I'm doing that." And so your mind goes there. And the genius, first of all, is that you're catching it in your mind. And there is a thing in the Bible that says, "Take every thought captive." So this book's not helping you with that. And so there's times where you just sort of have to discipline your thoughts. But what I like about this book, and Brother Lawrence's concept, is he says, "Don't try to fight the thoughts." Which I really relate to, because there are a lot of things that I try to discipline myself. I try to fight them out.
Right.
And so his concept is just admit them. And so it's confession. And so confession, everybody understands, is a spiritual discipline, and it's easy. And so what I do is when I journal, I just list the things and I identify it. Or when I'm in it, if Lori's impatient with me, and I walk away and my mind is just like, and in that moment, it's just say, wow, am I, off the rails? And do I think, she's insane and crazy and stuff? But then you just say it. But then the second part is then in that moment, you say, and God, you're with me. And Jesus, you love me. And you accept me with my pettiness and my anger, and I am so right and they are so wrong, and you still accept me, and you love me, you want to be with me. And that's the idea of mindfulness. And the mindfulness, it really does. It just clicks you. Now, I'd love to say it, my mind just then is pure, and it's not always, or, the things go away. It's not like they go away, but over time, it really does change settings in my brain, and they ratchet down as I can do that. And so the discipline is acknowledging and then embracing or being mindful is the term he uses. Yeah. And so being mindful of his presence. And so I do it when I'm driving my car. Somebody cuts me off, and it's like, well, but you're here, right? And so it's like, and I'm mad, but you know what? I want to scream, but I'm not gonna. So you do it. I do it because I need it, and it works for me. So,
yeah, I think that's a great parallel to what you shared about the Lord's Day. That we would pause and be like, in this moment, we can confess, I had that thought, I'm not proud of it, but Jesus, you're with me, and you accept me as I am. That's a profound and brilliant way to experience the presence of Jesus in your life. Equally, what you shared today about on the day off, when you are taking rest, to pause and to go, I'm not responsible for making the sun come up this morning.
That's right.
I'm not the one who makes the wheat grow in your, in the story.
Yeah, and I don't need to go back and check my calendar, and I'm not going to do these three things. I think the phone is probably the most hideous thing, because people you can go to work anytime, any place with your phone. And
work can go to you.
Yeah. And so the idea of, shutting that off, which nobody really wants to talk about. I think if you're really going to have a time of rest, you're going to have to separate yourself from your phone or turn it off, because there's just too many ways that no one's resting with their phone. In that screen, or in front of a computer. I don't think that somebody's going to rest at that place in that moment. And so then when you think of it, somebody just sitting outside, going for a walk on the beach, without your phone, you go, oh, that's a person at rest. That's what it looks like. But you see somebody sitting on a bench with a phone, then nobody's thinking that's rest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every once in a while I try it. I do. I leave my phone at home and I go for a
Good
little
for you.
wander. Yes, this is not me trying to be the star student, because I actually don't do it as often as I would like to. It's challenging, and that's a little embarrassing to say, like how hard it is, you know. But I have learned I'm not really at rest unless I do that.
Yeah, it can't be.
And I'm far more present with where I am if I do leave whatever, you know, this piece of technology that keeps me connected to the entire world. If I leave that behind, I'm able to be far more present and appreciate the sun and acknowledge, I can't believe that you do that for us, God,
Right,
that
that's
you
right.
let it rise and set for us every single day. You know, those kinds of things, I'll miss it if I still have that with me.
Yeah.
I would love, Kenton, for you to close our time by sharing why in the world we might do communion on a weekend like this, where we talk about work and rest. Kenton is someone who has shaped the way that I appreciate communion and celebrate communion. So I'd love for you to just take a minute and share a little bit about that.
Other than what I just shared, or what are you looking for on that? I know I'm
Let's
fascinated
recap
by what you
the
do.
whole thing. for
Just,
now.
The whole thing.
yeah.
So you know, the thing that anytime I see communion or I do communion, one of the things that I'm most passionate about is that people understand what they're doing. So I have a friend, and he's a Catholic, and he's a great guy. And you know, in a Catholic church, you have communion or mass every time. And I go, do you know what you're doing? And he goes, yeah, you know, and he kind of hammers through it. And so I say, why is it that there's the bread? Because, you know, they'll go, because I'm celebrating Jesus died for me. I go, well, what's the difference between the bread and the cup? And they're like, yeah, that's just the same thing. And so they don't get it. So with him, so I go, I want to explain this to you, because I want you, at least if you're going to be in your church, to know what you're doing. Because he goes, they don't explain anything to us. And so the thing that I'm passionate about is that people understand the difference in it. So the difference is the bread, Jesus says, is a picture of my body, which is given for you. So when you think of the bread, just think of Christmas. Just go to Christmas. And when you think of the cup, go to Easter, and you'll get it right. And so the bread is everything that we celebrate at Christmas. What is the bread? Jesus says, this is a picture of my body. What's my body? Well, it is literally God becoming flesh. And so very few people can embrace, even though the Bible talks about God, Jesus was equal with God, but didn't hold on to it, and he stepped down. So there's this giant stepping down and giving up and surrendering that's described in Philippians. And this is this journey that God did for us to become like us. And so it is this powerful theological construct of Jesus becoming human. And what most people do in their brains is when they go, yeah, Jesus became human, he slummed it on the earth for 3 years, but then he went back and was what he was originally. But the incarnation, Jesus becoming human, is actually an eternal miracle.
Right.
So God embraced humanity. He took on flesh forever. Jesus forever became man. So he came to this earth as the God-man. He lived as the God-man, a perfect. He died as the God-man, and he's resurrected as the God-man. That's why what's so powerful in the Bible is it's always saying he is the firstborn. He is the first. And so when we look at him, we go, this is what will happen to us in the resurrection. And so what you're in communion, what you're being mindful of is that God became like me, to be with me. And this bread is this picture of God loving me. And so every time when I say the bread, what kind of love is that? What is the key to that? And of course, you being a brilliant student would say, understanding love of God. It is the understanding.
That's what I was going to say.
And so really the bread is the understanding. God understands, because he says, I want you to do this to remember me. Well, so what is it you're going to forget? You're going to forget that God can understand you, which is what we do every time. When I go, I am so mad, or I am so hurt, or I've been betrayed, or people aren't, and I'm insensitive. And I think, even in confessing, I go, my mind just dismisses God, but You can't understand that. You're God. You can't get it. And then you look at Jesus and you go, oh my gosh, you do understand. You understand betrayal. You understand loss. You understand loneliness. You know what it's like to grow up. You know pain. You know you know everything about my life. And you are with me in that. So the bread is the understanding love of God. That's what Christmas is. That's what we celebrate every Christmas. That's the bread. And then the cup is the sacrificial love of God. And everybody gets that one right because it's my blood, which is shed for you. And so it's this picture that Jesus died for us to conquer sin and death. But then the question is, what do we forget? Why did Jesus say, do this? You're going to forget. Well, I forget that he paid the price, that his work was total and complete, and there's nothing I can add to it. So when I forget, what I do is I think, oh, I got to try harder. I got to be good. My part is, Jesus saved me, but I got to show it that I appreciate it by a good life and a righteous life and making good decisions. Now, I should do that, but I'm not earning anything and I'm not adding to it. And so that's really what I forget. And so when I take the cup, it is a picture of that he did this all for me. So communion is this powerful discipline. This is what I say to my Catholic friend. This is this powerful discipline that you need to. So every time you take the bread, whether they say it or not, just go, this is the understanding love of God. He understands me. And this is the sacrificial love of God. And understanding those two dimensions, two beautiful sides of what God's love means, is something that Jesus said, you need to do this on a regular basis. And so that's why we do it. There.
Everyone who is listening is so glad I asked. You're welcome, everyone. Kenton, thank you.
Sure.
It was beautiful. And I'm so excited for the rest of the weekend to see all the ways that God reveals himself to us. And Jared, thank you for joining us too.
Of course.
So glad.
Right.
Thank you guys for listening to the If I Had More Time podcast.